What's up, guys? It's Brent with Sonic Electronics, and today we're working on this 2014 Honda Accord, basically retaining the factory radio and adding a 6-channel amplifier to upgrade the sound in the vehicle. Well, customer wanted to retain the factory radio just due to the fact it's got nav, Bluetooth, and all the features. We've been doing this quite a lot lately. And the part that you're going to need is at least a 4-channel line-out converter to feed signal basically from the factory radio to your aftermarket amplifier. And the way it works is basically after you remove the radio out of this vehicle, or any vehicle that you're working on, it's going to be the same concept unless you have a factory amplifier in another location. The concept is pretty much still the same. Right here's our main radio harness. This is going to have all of our speaker wires relocated in it for each door. For example, this light green pink that are twisted, that's going to tell me that's the left front speaker wire according to the chart that I have here on the wiring diagram of this particular vehicle. So what I'm going to basically do is cut these two in half. The side that's coming out of the factory plug is now our input signal to our line-out converter, which on our line-out converter you'll see here are various colors of wires. These are our inputs. White is your left front, gray is your right front, purple is your right rear, and green is your left rear. These wires basically are tapping into the front left, front right, rear left outputs of the factory radio to then basically take the signal through the box and give us a low level voltage out via RCA. Now we can plug in RCAs and shoot them right to our JL amplifier that we're putting in this car today. Now, you may be wondering, what do I do with the speaker wires that I actually cut that are left off the other end of the factory harness that's going basically to all the doors? Well, what you could do is actually extend those to the outputs of your amplifier, 4-channel, 6-channel, 5-channel, whatever you're doing, if it's a low wattage system. In this particular vehicle, we're doing 50-watt speakers, 50-watt RMS handling. So we're going to 9-wire it to the outputs of our amplifier. It makes it a lot easier on the installation process. I don't have to run new speaker wire to each door, but I do suggest if you're running some serious amount of power, like 100 watts RMS or above, definitely run some new 16-gauge speaker wire to the doors. It's just a little hint there. So we're gonna go ahead and get this installed, interrupt the main factory harness, get our RCA pre-outs for our 6-channel, and it's pretty simple. What I would suggest is definitely make sure you look at the instructions that the line-out converter comes with. Due to the fact that sometimes some of them may require a power and ground, which this one has the option for. And with that power and ground, it actually supplies you a remote turn-on lead for your aftermarket amplifier. Now, with this particular NVX one, we can just use it as a line out and delete these wires, and I'm gonna worry about it. It'll still send signal. Or if I want to utilize it for a remote turn-on, I can. But today, I'm gonna get my remote turn-on from the factory accessory, which is actually feeding to the factory radio itself to turn it on and off. So that way the amp turns on exactly the same time as the factory radio. Other than that, stay tuned. Hope you enjoy. All right, guys, so I successfully wired in our line-out converter here, basically by taking the outputs, which are the speaker wires at the back of the factory connector of the radio, and attached them into the inputs of my line-out converter. Now, the wires I have left, I'm actually just gonna tape up and not utilize, which are power and ground and remote wire out, which will turn on my factory amplifier, which I really don't need because I have a factory accessory at the harness, which I just prefer going off that. Just my way of doing things. Now, if the car didn't have a factory accessory here, or it was CAN bus, I would actually utilize the remote output on this line-out converter. I would actually utilize that because all it needs is constant ground. Now the brown wire you see is actually an extra ground loop. It just goes to ground as well. If you're experiencing some engine noise or some humming at low volumes, you can ground this out. It may take care of that issue. But basically the next step is 9-wiring the other side that I cut on this factory harness, which is now going to the speakers. These wires are going to each door for each mid and high. So what I'm gonna do is 9-wire them, basically match the colors of the 9-wire to the outputs I did, or the inputs I did on the line-out converter. This is gonna run underneath the passenger seat to feed to the output of my new JL 6-channel. That way, when this XFlock 4 sends signal, it will amplify that signal, send it back up through the 9-wire and to each door in the car. Like I said earlier, this is great to use if you're doing a low wattage system, but if you're doing a high wattage system, you're definitely gonna wanna run some new 16-gauge speaker wire throughout the car. On that, stay tuned. All right guys, so I successfully wired up our line out converter and our new 9-wire that we're installing into the vehicle. Well, just give you an idea of what I'm doing here. This JLXD 606 is gonna go underneath the passenger seat. I have more than enough room, especially since it's such a small platform. So since I successfully 9-wired the speaker side, I'm gonna go ahead and feed this 9-wire down through the center console, shoot it underneath my seat, and attach it to the outputs of my amplifier. That way when this receives signal from my line out converter via RCA cables, I'll be able to send that signal, amplify it to all the door speakers. Pretty simple installation, as long as you make sure that you get the right outputs for polarity. Because if you mix up the polarity on the line out converter, as well as the speaker wire, your system is going to sound all funky and hollow. It's not going to sound good. So make sure you get a good printout on the car or a good tech doc on what the factory wiring colors are. If not, what you could do is check polarity as well, or pop the speaker to see which one's positive and negative on the factory wiring harness in general. So other than that, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and start feeding my 9-wire, my power wire, get this amp mounted underneath the seat and get this thing knocked out. Stay tuned.
You know what the speaker colors are?
The right front is going to be red.
Positive?
Red is negative, gray is positive.
All right guys, so we got it all tidied up now. We went ahead and tested everything before we buttoned up the entire car. That's a definitely important part to do. Before I got the radio all reassembled and installed into the vehicle, I went ahead and tested my signal, balance and fader, set my gains on the amplifier, and basically tuned everything to make sure it sounds good. Now all we have left to do is get the door panels back on. And other than that, just remember, if you want to keep that factory radio, you got to use a line out converter or a processor in this case. In this particular vehicle, since we're doing a 6-channel amplifier, which we're bridging the 5th and 6th channel to a woofer, you need a 4-channel line out converter. In the cases of just adding a subwoofer amplifier to the vehicle, all you need is a 2-channel line out converter for a mono or 2-channel amplifier. But other than that, guys, it sounds good. The customer should be pretty happy with it. All we have to do is put the woofer in and we're good to go. Other than that, hope you guys enjoyed, and this is Brendan with Sonic Electronics.